The Galactic Council's denial in the Grand Chamber of the Hub of Worlds, a space station serving as the central meeting place for the Galactic Council, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Ambassador Thomas Rice, a seasoned diplomat representing Earth, stood at the center of the chamber, facing a semicircle of alien delegates from various star systems. The hall was vast, its domed ceiling adorned with holographic representations of distant galaxies, a reminder of the vastness and diversity of the universe. Yet, in this moment, all the splendor of the cosmos seemed to pale in comparison to the weight of the decision that hung in the air. Rice had made this journey to the Hub of Worlds countless times before, each visit filled with hope that this time humanity would be granted the recognition it sought, a seat on the Galactic Council. But every time those hopes had been dashed, and today was proving no different. Galactic Councilor Denb, a towering figure with scales that glinted like polished obsidian, leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he fixed Rice with a cold, disdainful gaze. The Boran leader's voice, deep and resonant, echoed through the chamber as he spoke, each word laced with contempt. "Your kind will never earn a seat among the enlightened races," Denb declared, his words sending a ripple of murmurs through the gathered counselors. "You are nothing more than barbaric primitives, unfit to stand alongside superior civilizations." The word struck Rice like a physical blow, and he could feel the heat rising in his chest, a mixture of anger and frustration that threatened to boil over. For too long, Earth had been treated as a second-class member of the galactic community, its accomplishments and advancements ignored or belittled. The other species viewed humanity as nothing more than the sum of its violent past, as if the centuries of progress, of reaching for the stars, meant nothing. Rice had always prided himself on his diplomatic restraint, on his ability to remain calm in the face of provocation. But today, something inside him snapped. Drawing himself up to his full height, Rice took a deep breath, his gaze sweeping across the chamber, taking in the faces of the alien delegates. Many of them wore expressions of disdain, while others looked on with something resembling curiosity, as if they were witnessing a spectacle rather than a serious discussion about the future of the galaxy. Rice's voice, when he finally spoke, was calm, but carried an undeniable edge of steel. "Esteemed counselors," he began, his tone formal, but there was no mistaking the resolve behind his words. "Your dismissal of humanity is a grave error in judgment. We are not the simple brutes you paint us to be. Our advancements have brought us to the stars, and we are ready to claim our destiny among them." He let the words hang in the air for a moment, allowing them to sink in before continuing. "I give you a choice. 1 Earth year remains to welcome us as equals, to grant our rightful seat on this council. But refuse us again, and you will learn the true strength of the human spirit. We will not cower, and we will not yield. Deny us, and you would be wise to run far and fast, for we will come for you with all the might and fury of Earth. No corner of the galaxy will shelter you. The decision is yours, recognition or ruin. But know this, we will have our place among the stars one way or another." As Rice finished speaking, a stunned silence gripped the chamber. The alien delegates exchanged uneasy glances, their previous confidence now shaken by the humans' bold ultimatum. For a moment, it seemed as though the very air in the chamber had thickened, charged with the weight of what had just been said. Then, like a storm breaking over the horizon, the chamber erupted into chaos. Alien diplomats shouted in outrage, their voices rising in a cacophony of indignation. Some scoffed at what they perceived as empty threats, dismissing Rice's words as nothing more than bravado. But others, those who had perhaps studied humanity more closely, eyed the ambassador nervously, a seed of doubt planted deep within them. Denb, for his part, tried to maintain his facade of aloof superiority, but Rice could see the flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Behind closed doors, the Boran leader and a few others began to wonder uneasily if they had underestimated the potential danger of a defiant Earth. The whispers of the human ultimatum spread like wildfire through the galaxies, reaching even the farthest corners of the known universe. And quietly, in the shadows where the true power of nations is often wielded, an unprecedented mobilization began. Humanity, long dismissed and overlooked, was preparing to seize its cosmic birthright, and they would do so with or without the Council's blessing. The clock was now ticking, and the countdown to humanity's ascension had begun. Earth's silent preparation. Back on Earth, far from the diplomatic halls of the hub of worlds, preparations for the inevitable conflict were already well underway. The Situation Room deep within the Pentagon buzzed with an intensity that belied its otherwise unassuming exterior. This was a place that officially did not exist, a fortress of intelligence and military strategy where the brightest minds of humanity converged to plan for scenarios that most citizens could never imagine. Here, surrounded by holographic displays that detailed every known star system and alien fleet, General Marcus Graves stood at the head of a long, polished table. His weathered face was a mask of calm determination, but his eyes were hard, reflecting the gravity of the task before him. He had been through many battles in his long career, but nothing had ever felt as momentous as this. "Ladies and gentlemen," Graves began, his voice carrying the weight of responsibility that only those in his position could truly understand. "We stand at the precipice of a galactic conflict the likes of which we have never seen. The Galactic Council may believe they can dismiss us, but we will show them the true mettle of the human spirit." With a tap on the table, Graves brought up a detailed star map, the room darkening slightly as the holographic projection filled the air above the table. It was a vast and complex web of colored lines and symbols, representing trade routes, military installations, and known alien territories. Red markers indicated human colonies and outposts, each one a potential target in the event of hostilities. The general's gaze settled on a particular cluster of stars that marked the outer colonies, those farthest from Earth, yet closest to the alien worlds that had often viewed humanity with suspicion or outright hostility. "Our first priority," Graves continued, his voice steady and resolute, "is to secure our colonies and fortify our defenses. We cannot afford to lose a single outpost. Every inch of space we control is crucial to our survival." He paused, allowing the significance of his words to sink in before turning his attention to a striking woman standing at the far end of the table. Her posture was as rigid as her gaze was piercing. "Colonel Phoenix," Graves addressed her directly, "I need your best operatives on the ground, gathering intelligence on the enemy's movements and infrastructure." Colonel Catherine Phoenix, a veteran of countless covert operations, nodded curtly. She was a woman of few words, but when she spoke, her team listened. "My team is ready, sir," she replied, her voice low and controlled. "We'll get you the information you need." She then turned to a lean, shadowy figure standing beside her, a man who moved with the silent grace of a predator. "Lieutenant Hawkins," she commanded, "prep your gear. We leave at 400. Lieutenant Jake Ghost Hawkins, a specialist in infiltration and reconnaissance, flashed a predatory grin. "Roger that, ma'am," he said, his voice carrying a hint of dark humor. "We'll give those alien bastards a reason to fear the dark." As Phoenix's team filed out to begin their preparations, Graves continued to address the remaining officers in the room. "While they gather intelligence," he said, "we must prepare for the worst." His gaze shifted to a tall woman with sharp features and an even sharper mind. "Dr. Cassandra Hale, what progress have you made on the new defense technologies?" Dr. Hale, a brilliant scientist whose innovations had already saved countless lives, stepped forward, her sharp gaze focused entirely on the general. "Our new energy shields are nearing completion, General," she reported, her tone brisk and efficient. "They should provide a significant advantage against the aliens' weapons. Additionally, the AI combat systems are learning at an exponential rate. They'll be ready for deployment within the month." Graves nodded, a glimmer of hope briefly flickering in his battle-hardened eyes. "Excellent work, Doctor," he said, his voice firm. "We'll need every edge we can get." Meanwhile, deep in space aboard the Galactic Council's flagship, Commander Zarks paced the bridge like a caged predator. Her reptilian eyes gleamed with malice as she studied the reports from her spies. The humans, it seemed, were up to something. "The humans are up to something," Zarks hissed, her forked tongue flicking out in agitation. "Increase surveillance on their colonies. I want to know their every move. Her second-in-command, Sergeant Rexon Flug, snapped to attention. "At once, Commander," he responded, his voice tinged with a mixture of respect and fear. "And what of the human ambassador's ultimatum?" Rexon asked, his scales rippling as he waited for her reaction. Vex sneered, her scales rippling with contempt. "Empty threats from a primitive species," she spat, her voice dripping with disdain. "They have no idea of the true power they face." She turned to her subordinate, her gaze hardening. "But perhaps it's time we teach them a lesson. Find a human outpost, one with minimal defenses. We'll show them the price of defiance." As Flug set out to carry out his orders, Vex allowed herself a cruel smile. The humans would learn their place, one way or another. Light years away, on the gleaming bridge of an Avan warship, Admiral Vessa Thorne studied the latest intelligence reports with growing unease. The delicate feathers on her head ruffled in agitation as she read of the escalating tensions between humanity and the Council. She tapped a button on her console, opening a secure communication channel. The face of Ambassador Rice appeared on the screen, his expression grave. "Admiral Thorne," Rice greeted her, his voice tight with strain. "I trust you've seen the latest developments." Thorne nodded, her golden eyes troubled. "The Council is making a mistake, Ambassador. They underestimate your people at their own peril." Rice's jaw tightened. His eyes filled with a mixture of frustration and determination. "And we're running out of time to make them see reason," he replied. "The deadline approaches, and the drums of war grow louder every day." Thorne leaned forward, her voice urgent. "Then we must work together to prevent this conflict before it consumes us all. I will reach out to my allies on the Council, try to sway them to our side. But we must tread carefully. There are those who would see our efforts as treason." Rice's eyes glinted with willpower. "We'll do whatever it takes, Admiral. The future of both our peoples depends on it." As the transmission ended, Thorne stared out at the stars, a sense of foreboding washing over her. The fate of humanity and all alien species hung in the balance, and she could only hope that cooler heads would prevail before it was too late. The strike on Prometheus, as tensions reached a boiling point, the Galactic Council's patience wore thin. Commander Zarks, determined to demonstrate the might of the Council and to crush any notions of human superiority, launched a preemptive strike against the human outpost on Prometheus. The decision was calculated, cruel, and utterly devastating. Prometheus was a relatively small and isolated mining colony on the edge of human-controlled space, nestled within an asteroid belt. The miners who called it home had carved out a meager existence, extracting precious resources from the unforgiving rock. They were far from the bustling centers of trade and diplomacy, living a life of hardship under the shadow of a gas giant that loomed ominously in the sky. For them, the threat of an alien attack was a distant, almost abstract concern until the day the sky turned red. The attack came without warning. One moment, the miners were going about their routine, and the next, the alien ships appeared in the sky, their hulls gleaming with malevolent purpose. The miners scrambled for their weapons, but they were hopelessly outmatched. Plasma beams lanced down from the ships, vaporizing habitats and equipment with ruthless efficiency. The screams of the dying mingled with the roar of collapsing structures, a symphony of destruction that echoed across the barren landscape. In a matter of minutes, the outpost was reduced to a smoldering ruin, the corpses of the miners strewn among the wreckage. The alien ships hovered overhead, their mission accomplished. From the bridge of her flagship, Commander Zarks watched the carnage with cold satisfaction. "The price of defiance," she muttered to herself, her voice filled with venom. "Let this be a lesson to all who dare challenge the Galactic Council." News of the massacre spread like wildfire, igniting outrage across human space. In the halls of power on Earth, Ambassador Rice watched the footage of the carnage, his heart heavy with the weight of the lives lost. But beneath the grief, a cold fury burned. The aliens had crossed a line, and there would be no going back. The time for diplomacy had passed. Now, there would be only the reckoning. Back in the Pentagon, General Graves and his staff were already deep in crisis mode. The holographic displays that filled the room showed the extent of the destruction on Prometheus, along with real-time updates on the status of other human colonies. The attack had been swift and brutal, but it had also been an act of war, and humanity was ready to respond. "It's time," Graves announced, his voice cutting through the tense silence. "Admiral Hale, deploy the fleet to New Terra. Show those reptilian bastards we mean business." Admiral Jaden Hale, a seasoned officer with a reputation for calm under pressure, snapped to attention. "Understood, sir. We'll be ready to move out within 24 hours. As Hale strode from the room, Ambassador Rice stepped forward, his eyes gleaming with a mix of determination and fury. "General, I have news from our alien allies," he said, his voice tight with anticipation. "We've uncovered something big, evidence of technology suppression by the Council. This could change everything." Graves leaned in, intrigued. "Go on." Rice's words tumbled out in a rush. "Medical breakthroughs, clean energy solutions, all kept from us. We're leaking it to the galactic media as we speak." A thin smile crossed Graves's face. "Excellent work, Rice. Let's see how the Council handles this little PR disaster." Across the galaxy, Colonel Phoenix and her team crouched behind a rocky outcropping, their stealth suits blending seamlessly with the alien twilight. They had infiltrated deep into reptilian territory, their objective a heavily fortified military installation. Its energy shields shimmered in the fading light, a formidable barrier that few could hope to breach. "Ghost, you're up," Phoenix whispered into her comm. "Get in, get the data, get out." No heroics. Lieutenant Hawkins's voice crackled back over the comm. "Roger that, Colonel. I'll be back before you know it." With the silent efficiency of a ghost, Hawkins slipped past the guards and entered the installation. Hours ticked by, and as the minutes turned into an agonizing wait, a sick feeling grew in Phoenix's gut. Something had gone wrong. Her fears were confirmed when Sergeant Flug's smug visage appeared on the emergency channel. "Looking for your little spy, humans?" he hissed, his reptilian eyes gleaming with malice. "He's ours now. Come and get him if you dare!" The news of Hawkins's capture hit the war room like a thunderbolt. General Graves paced furiously, his mind racing through options. "We can't leave him there," he growled. "Steele!" Captain Marcus Steele, a man who materialized from the shadows with a cybernetic eye glowing faintly, stepped forward. "Sir, assemble your best," Graves ordered, his voice filled with grim determination. "We're getting our man back." The rescue mission was a blur of plasma fire and screams. Steele's team fought tooth and nail through the reptilian prison complex, leaving a trail of destruction in their wake. They found Hawkins barely conscious, his body a mass of bruises and cuts, but alive. As they fled to their extraction point, reptilian reinforcements swarmed in, overwhelming Steele's team. In a desperate last stand, Steele watched in horror as half his team was cut down in a hail of energy bolts. They escaped by the skin of their teeth, but the price had been steep. The aftermath of the rescue reverberated across the galaxy. Commander Zarks, seething with rage at the human incursion, gathered her fleet for a counterstrike. "Prometheus," she snarled to her bridge crew. "We'll crush their pathetic colony and show them the price of defiance." The reptilian assault caught Prometheus off guard. Orbital defenses crumbled under the onslaught, and dropships full of reptilian shock troops descended on the terrified colonists. Admiral Hale, monitoring the situation from New Terra, knew he had to act fast. "Commander Vega," he barked into the comm. "Take the rapid response force and get to Prometheus now." Elena Vega, a rising star in the fleet, responded immediately. Her fingers flew over her ship's controls as she led her fleet out of hyperspace and into the chaos above Prometheus. The sight that greeted her turned her blood to ice. Reptilian warships swarming like angry insects, raining death on the colony below. "All ships, form up on me," she ordered, her mind already formulating a plan. "We're going to use that asteroid field to our advantage." What followed was a masterclass in space combat. Vega's ships darted and weaved through the asteroid belt, using the rocky debris as cover and lures for the less maneuverable reptilian vessels. One by one, enemy ships fell to precision strikes or devastating collisions. But Vega knew the real threat was Zarks's flagship, still hanging back from the main battle. With a deep breath, Vega made her decision. "Prepare boarding teams," she announced. "We're taking the fight to them." The boarding action was brutal, close-quarters combat at its deadliest. Vega fought her way through corridors littered with human and reptilian bodies, her pulse rifle spitting death at every turn. Finally, she reached the bridge, coming face to face with Commander Zarx herself. Zarx's scales gleamed with battle fury as she lunged at Vega with razor-sharp claws. For long minutes they grappled and struck, neither able to gain the upper hand. But slowly, inexorably, Vega's superior training began to tell. With a final decisive blow, she sent Zarx crashing to the deck, unconscious. As word of the reptilian defeat spread, the galaxy held its breath. The Battle of Prometheus had proven humanity's mettle beyond doubt, but at a terrible cost. Thousands of human lives had been snuffed out in the conflict, both military and civilian. The victory was bittersweet, a reminder that the road ahead was still fraught with danger. Back on Earth, in the halls of the Galactic Council, an emergency session crackled with tension. Counselor Denb, his voice dripping with venom, addressed the assembly. "These humans are a menace," he declared. "They must be sanctioned, contained, before they can do any more damage." But Admiral Thorne, standing firm and defiant, responded with equal conviction. "The humans defended themselves against unprovoked aggression," she retorted, her feathers ruffled with indignation. "If anyone should be sanctioned, it's the reptilians." As the argument raged, Ambassador Rice stepped forward, his eyes blazing with righteous anger. "Esteemed counselors," he began, his voice cutting through the din, "for too long you have treated humanity as second-class citizens of the galaxy. You've hidden technology from us, dismissed our accomplishments, and now you have the gall to condemn us for defending ourselves." The Drari Alliance, as the council session adjourned, Rice's communicator chirped with an incoming message from General Graves. "Ambassador," the gruff voice crackled through the comm, "get back to Earth. We need to prepare for what's coming." Rice nodded grimly, his heart heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. The fate of humanity, and indeed the entire galaxy, now hung in the balance. The reptilians were not just licking their wounds, they were rallying for a full-scale war. And the latest intelligence reports suggested that they were not alone. Back in the war room on Earth, Rice found General Graves standing before a massive holographic display, his eyes fixed on a new and troubling development. "Commander Zarx has gone rogue," Graves stated bluntly, his voice laced with concern. "Our intel suggests she's reaching out to some nasty customers, the Drari, led by Supreme Warlord Draze." The mention of the Drari sent a chill down Rice's spine. The Drari were one of the most feared and ruthless species in the galaxy, renowned for their brutality and their penchant for leaving nothing but scorched worlds in their wake. If Zarx managed to secure an alliance with them, humanity's chances of survival would plummet. "We can't let that alliance form," Rice said, his voice resolute. "Agreed," Graves replied. "That's why we're striking first." Within hours, Rice found himself back in the war room, watching as holographic displays lit up with the positions of human fleets across multiple star systems. Admiral Hale's calm voice filled the room as he outlined the plan of attack. "We'll hit their shipyards here, here, and here," he said, highlighting targets across the galactic map. "Commander Vega will lead the assault on their orbital defense platforms. Speed and precision are critical." The room fell silent as the operation began. Rice watched, heart pounding, as human ships dropped out of hyperspace, catching the reptilian forces completely off guard. Vega's voice crackled over the comms as her ships engaged the first defense platform. "Target acquired!" Firing main batteries. A brilliant flash erupted on the tactical display as the platform disintegrated. Similar scenes played out across a dozen systems as humanity struck hard and fast at the reptilian war machine. But the aliens were not about to go down without a fight. As Rice and Graves monitored the unfolding battles, alarms blared. A massive reptilian fleet had emerged in the Epsilon sector, a critical nexus of trade routes. "It's Zarx!" Graves growled, his fists clenched. "She's making her move." The battle that erupted in Epsilon was unlike anything Rice had ever seen. Thousands of ships clashed in a titanic struggle, energy weapons lancing across the void of space. At the heart of the reptilian formation loomed the massive dreadnought, the Red Scourge, Zarx's flagship. Lieutenant Hawkins's face appeared on the main screen, his expression grim but determined. General, we're in position. Permission to commence boarding action on the Red Scourge. Graves nodded. Granted. Give them hell, son. Rice watched in awe as Hawkins led his team through the bowels of the massive alien ship. They fought their way through twisting corridors, leaving a trail of reptilian bodies in their wake. Finally, they reached the ship's reactor core. "Sir," Hawkins's voice came through, strained and barely audible over the sound of weapons fire. "We've rigged the core to overload, but we're cut off. There's no way out." A heavy silence fell over the war room. Rice saw the pain in Graves's eyes as he spoke. "Understood, Lieutenant. Your sacrifice will not be forgotten." Moments later, the Red Scourge erupted in a cataclysmic explosion, taking Hawkins and his team with it. The reptilian fleet, suddenly leaderless, began to falter. As news of the victory spread, Rice's diplomatic channels exploded with activity. Smaller alien species, long chafing under reptilian rule, pledged their support to humanity. Vital intelligence flowed in, painting a picture of a galactic order on the brink of collapse. But the war was just the beginning. On the Counselor homeworlds, Denb and his loyalists grew increasingly desperate. Rice received an urgent transmission from Admiral Thorne, her feathers ruffled with alarm. "Ambassador, we've uncovered a plot. Denb plans to unleash a bioweapon called the Drex on your colony of Avalon. You must act quickly." Rice relayed the warning to Graves, who immediately set course for Avalon. But even as evacuation ships raced to the colony, Denb's forces launched their vicious Pale,